What's going on, world? I want to talk to you today about the threats of HAARP and Cern, the machines that are manipulating and controlling our weather. I know with the pandemic and the current political hemisphere, there's lots of distraction all around us, and a lot of people are not paying attention to their surroundings and what's happening truly in the background of this political hemisphere and all the chaos that is unfolding all around the world. The purpose of this video is to educate you on what is taking place all around us in the background, the true sinister plan of what is going to happen. I will take you on a ride through future events, a shift in the continents, the sinking of the majority of the nations, only 5 nations left standing, the rise of Lemuria and Atlantis, which is the 2 beasts that rise out of the sea in Revelation 13. The alien disclosure, or the coming race. I will also cover the rise of the Antichrist, whose name is Adam. I reveal where he is hiding and the prophecy of his rise to power. I also take you through the testimony of Jesus Christ and show you the spirit of his prophecy and the day he will return. I cover lots of material in this documentary. The one bit I didn't get into is the Wormwood Prophecy, which is the meteorite talked about in Revelations that will strike the earth. NASA predicts it'll strike around 2029, which corresponds with the timeline I give of the coming cataclysm and the rise of the Antichrist and the 7-year tribulation. 2029 will be halfway through that 7-year tribulation. 3.5 years of peace and 3.5 years of chaos and war. I'll definitely cover Wormwood in a future video, but for this video I wanted to stick to the main topic, which is the coming cataclysm that will be caused by Cern and HAARP, the revealing of the coming race or the alien disclosure, the rise of the Antichrist to global power, the 7-year tribulation, and the return of Christ and the glory promised to us by Christ and his sacrifice on the cross. The book of Revelations, chapter 19, verse 10 tells us the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now, to begin, we must first cover the scientific purposes and uses of HAARP and Cern. They will achieve this through synergy, working weather manipulation with their HAARP machine in cooperation of particle acceleration using the Cern machine. The purpose is for climate change and to cause a shift in the continents. They will turn the current surface civilizations into the ocean floor, and the ocean floor will become new surfaces to inhabit. Let's first look at the HAARP machine and its purpose. It stands for the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, or HAARP. HAARP is a scientific endeavor aimed at studying the properties and behavior of the ionosphere. How does HAARP work? Scientists at HAARP use HF radio transmitters to heat regions of the ionosphere and observe the effects, including ionospheric heating. What happens in the ionosphere? The upper atmosphere is ionized by solar radiation. That means the sun's energy is so strong at this level that it breaks apart molecules. So there ends up being electrons floating around and molecules which have lost or gained electrons. When the sun is active, more and more ionization happens. The ionosphere is the part of the atmosphere that is ionized. It plays an important part in atmospheric electricity and forms the inner edge of the magnetosphere. It has practical importance because, among other functions, it influences radio propagation to distant places on the Earth. So by heating up the ionosphere using the HAARP machine, they are breaking up molecules at an accelerated rate. Molecules broken apart become particles. This is where the HAARP machine works in cooperation with the Cern machine. The ionosphere is naturally heated by solar radiation, which is light and heat from the sun onto the earth all the way down to its surface. The molecules of that natural solar radiation break apart on the ionosphere, creating particles. The HAARP machine also heats up the ionosphere using HF radio transmitters, which also breaks molecules on the ionosphere back down into particles. The Cern machine is a particle detector and particle accelerator. Particle accelerators use electric fields to speed up and increase the energy of a beam of particles, which are steered and focused by magnetic fields. By accelerating these particles at the speed of light, Cern is altering the Earth's magnetic field. The Cern machine is 100,000 times stronger than the Earth's magnetic field. So by the ionosphere being naturally heated by the sun's radiation, as well as artificially heated by the HAARP's HF radio transmitters, so by HAARP and Cern altering the electrical and magnetic fields of the Earth, we get a blueprint for the next global cataclysm. The Adam and Eve story, written by Chan Thomas, gives great detail of the consequences of altering the magnetic and electrical fields of the earth in the first 2 pages of the very first chapter. And they read, "With a rumble so low as to be inaudible, growing, throbbing, then fuming into a thundering roar, the earthquake starts. Only it's not like any earthquake in recorded history. In California, the mountains shake like ferns in a breeze. The mighty Pacific rears back and piles up into a mountain of water more than 2 miles high, then starts its race eastward. With the force of 1,000 armies, the wind attacks, ripping, shredding everything in its supersonic bombardment. The unbelievable mountain of Pacific seawater follows the wind eastward, burying Los Angeles and San Francisco as if they were nothing but grains of sand. Nothing but nothing stops the relentless, overwhelming onslaught of wind and ocean. Across the continent, the 1,000-mile-per-hour wind wreaks its unholy vengeance everywhere, mercilessly, unceasingly. Every living thing is ripped into shreds while being blown across the countryside, and the earthquake leaves no place untouched. In many places, the earth's molten sublayer breaks through and spreads a sea of white, hot liquid fire to add to the Holocaust. Within 3 hours, the fantastic wall of water moves across the continent, burying the wind-ravaged land under 2 miles of seething water, coast to coast. In a fraction of a day, all vestiges of civilization are gone, and the great cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Dallas, New York, are nothing but legends. Barely a stone is left where millions walked just a few hours before. A few lucky ones who managed to find shelter from the screaming wind on the lee side of Pikes Peak watched the sea of molten fire break through the quaking valleys below. The raging waters follow, piling higher and higher, steaming over the molten earth fire and rising almost to their feet. As we read onward, we see how the rest of the world is also affected by this cataclysm. The PDF is available down in the description. I will leave the rest for you guys to read. We are given a cross-section diagram of the earth at the beginning of the book. And alarmingly, the patterns of Cern and the patterns of HAARP match exactly the cross-section of the earth. If we look at the cross-section of the earth inside the front cover, we see 2 molten layers. The orange one is the important one. This one is the molten layer about 60 miles thick, which is between 60 and 100 miles down below the surface of the earth. The thick, deep molten layer starting 1,800 miles down at the bottom of the mantle and extending 13 miles deeper is the outer core. Now both molten layers are liquid. However, the inner magnetic and electrical structure of the earth makes these layers act as if they were near solid or plastic. As long as the magnetic and electrical structures maintains its order lines, the old earth keeps on rotating on its axis in a normal manner. Once the electrical and magnetic fields of the earth have been disrupted beyond what the earth can handle, the inner core and outer core will return to their natural liquid state. And when this happens, a global cataclysm is inevitable. A man-made inundation will be their mockery of the flood of Noah. They will turn the current surface into the ocean floor, and the ocean floor will become a new surface that they will attempt to inhabit. The opening ceremony for Cern was not a celebration, it was a dedication to the dance of Shiva, the Thandanvam, which is a dance of bliss. It symbolizes the cosmic cycles and creation as well as destruction. This is why they have built military bases and mass cities and vaults inside of the earth. They will hide themselves away once they have triggered this event. Once the waves have settled and all civilization has been wiped away, they will emerge a new civilization where race is redefined, gender is redefined, religion is redefined. They call themselves gods of a new time. So now that we've covered the scientific purposes and uses of Cern and HAARP, we now know their mission is to cause a shift in the continents and then ultimately a big bang. Now a shift in the continents is going to put most of the world that is inhabited under the ocean. That is going to leave 5 nations standing, which we learn about in the book Coming World Changes in chapter 4, the king of the world, who is the Antichrist. At the moment, he is hiding in Tibet, in a city called the City of Initiates in the Valley of Mysteries. To learn about this, you need the books Darkness Over Tibet, and you also need the book A Dweller on Two Planets. This man claims to be a great Atlantean master, which is the beast that rises out of the sea, which is Poseidon, which is the beast that rises out of the sea in Revelations 13. The beast is a multitude. It is a nation, but it's not a current nation on the surface. It is an ancient nation that sunk, which is Atlantis. The dragon Poseidon uses earthquakes and floods to attack his enemies. And that's exactly what the Bible says the beast who rises out of the sea will do. Use earthquakes and floods to attack the people of God. This future cataclysm does not only happen because the Cern machine and the HAARP machine are altering the magnetic and electric fields of the earth. They will also happen because of us, our sins, our thoughts. Every time we put out dark energy into the world, these machines are detecting those particles. And those particles are what's going to cause this flood, this coming cataclysm to happen. It is our own punishment caused by our own seeds that we have sown. This is why Jesus Christ must return. But the Antichrist has to first rise up, and he must establish that 7-year tribulation. I suspect this will happen around the next presidential election between 2024 and 2026. Don't know the actual date, but expect something big around that time. And I mean big. I'm talking world changing, coming world changes. One thing also to look at in the prophecy of the coming world changes and the rise of the Antichrist is the alien disclosure. This prophecy mentions a coming race that rises up after a great cataclysm. They are the ones who help introduce the Antichrist who is in Tibet. They are the ones who help him establish peace in Asia, and then on into the Middle East, and then on into the Western countries, and then a global government will be formed among these 5 nations. These aliens are the coming race. This coming race will be hybrids of the ancient world and the new world. They will rise up after this mass cataclysm, and when the world is in chaos, they will appear to bring peace and safety. And then the Antichrist will rise up as their leader, and they will deceive the world into accepting him as their leader. This coming race has chosen America as the place they will rise up from the hollow earth to establish this world of peace. And that place is Mount Shasta, California, because that will be all that is left of California after this cataclysm. Now, one thing to understand before we get into this chapter is the Antichrist does not rise up by force and force people to follow him at first. He rises up like a politician. He gains everyone's trust. He brings peace to Asia, then peace to the Middle East, and then on into the Western countries of what's left after this cataclysm. At the moment, there are too many people. He will never get that many people to follow him. Therefore, the world must be sunk and 5 nations must remain. That's when the mark of the beast will be introduced and people will beg for it. After such a cataclysm, after such an event, people lose loved ones under the ocean, families are scattered, people are lost in places that are flooded out. People are going to beg for this device. People are going to beg for a society that always knows where you are for your safety. Remember 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them. Always be watchful. Now let's get into chapter 4, coming world changes. Chapter 4, the King of the world. And though the Lord give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet shall not thy teachers be removed into a corner any more. But thine eye shall see thy teachers, and thine ears shall hear a word behind thee, saying, This is the way, walk ye in it. Isaiah chapter 30, 20 through 31. Press on, my warriors, fear not the fray. We are the conquerors, our voice obey. Sound loud the trumpet, blast, happy and free. Tell of the day star that is destined to be. Harriet Augusta Curtis in Realms of the Living Dead, page 176. Beginning with chapter 4. In his remarkable book, Beasts, Men, and Gods, published in 1922, Dr. Ferdinand Orzendowski, formerly professor of chemistry and economical geography in the Polytechnic Institute of Petrograd, and later professor of chemistry at the Polish University at Warsaw, reports a prophecy given as far back as 1890 to the Hutuktu, abbot of the Narabanchi Monastery in Mongolia, by the great unknown, who throughout Asia is called the King of the world. This prophecy described the conditions that were coming to humanity during the following 50 years, much of which was literally fulfilled during World War I, as follows. More and more people will forget their souls and care about their bodies. The greatest sin and corruption will reign on earth. The crowns of kings great and small will fall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There will be a terrible battle among all peoples, the world wars. The seas will become red. The earth and the bottom of the sea will be strewn with bones. Kingdoms will be scattered. Whole peoples will die. Hunger, disease, crimes unknown to law, never before seen in the world. The ancient roads will be covered with crowds, wandering from one place to the other. All the earth will be emptied. God will turn away from it, and over it there will be only night and death. Then I shall send a people, now unknown, which shall tear out the weeds of madness and vice with a strong hand, and I will lead those still remain faithful to the spirit of man in the fight against evil. They will found a new life on the earth, purified by the death of nations. The King of the world will appear before all people when the time shall arrive, for him to lead all the good people of the world against the bad. But this time has not yet come. The most evil among mankind have not yet been born. In an article in the Century magazine for December 1923, Professor Orzendowski states that among various Asiatic people there exists a watchword proclaiming the superiority of the spiritual strength of the East and affirming the necessity of forcing all humanity to accept its will and its world outlook, even at the cost of general blood spilling, even by hurling Asiatic multitudes upon the nations rotting in the bog of European civilization. Accordingly, at the fires of the nomad shepherds of the prairies and the Sinim marshes in northern Tibet, in the Himalayas, on the banks of the Hind and the Ganges, in Asia Minor, in Iran, and the valleys of the Yangtze and the Huangpo, people of different colors, tribes, races, and creeds, but united by the common bond of Asiatic ideology, talk, discuss, sing, and dream about the approaching hour when the hand of the Asiatic will be the hand of karma and will execute the decrees of fate to an attack against the white race, an attack which is the dream of some Asiatic circles. At all events, it is more than probable that the white race will be obliged to reckon with the influence of the now only legendary king of the world. The latter part of the above prophecy seems to corroborate the prophecy of Mr. Cromer regarding an Asiatic invasion as given on page 23. During her remarkable visit to Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, Alexandria, David Neal relates that hatred of Europeans is sown in many remote corners of Asia. Many partisans stand ready to support the expected warrior Messiah, who according to the prophets will arise before long in the northern land, unite all Asia under his victorious sword, and cast out the impure, demonical Westerners. Already the Japanese have called a Pan-Asiatic Union Conference to meet at Nagasaki on August 1st, 1926, designed to bind the nations of the Orient in the same sort of fashion as the Pan-American Union links the nations of the Western Hemisphere. There is unfortunately an ominous ring in the title of the Pan-Asiatic Society. There is considerable justification for the apprehensions, but not as yet for the accompanying fears. The unity and peace of Asia are the objectives of the leaders who hope sooner or later to bring about a serious Asia for the Asiatics situation. In our lesson for December 1922, we gave out a prophecy given to the order of Christian mystics by the same mysterious king of the world, which reads as follows: I see a great and devastating flame sweeping the world from east to west. A flame of fire, a flame of sword and famine and murder and bitterness and death. I see the people of the earth, each one with its hand lifted against its brother, each country seeking for its own, men dying and cursing God with every dying breath, and sowing the seed of new and more frightful flames. I see descending from on a high the mighty angel with the flaming sword, for only fire can purify hate. I see this flame of purification sweeping the earth from east to west, from the rising of the sun to the going down of the sun. 5 countries are left. The rest sink beneath the seas. 5 countries, 5 lands like fingers on a man's hand. 4 shall be great and 1 small. But out of the smallest there grows the greatest light. Then comes redemption. Then comes that which alone can make this world to be reborn once more human, like a babe laid in a manger, cradled in its mother's arms. I see a great mountain lifted up in the midst of the countries which are left, and from its top there radiates the light of the spiritual sun, and I see the remnants of mankind bathed in its radiance. Think not that any country in this broad world can escape. The flame sweeps onward and over. Only those who have the flame of the living Christ in their hearts shall survive. I speak, for this is my world. Into my hands it has been given. I stretch out my hand, and each finger represents a point of force, a place where the great living power of the sun has breathed into it the life fire which is immortal. Where are my children? They are dying. They are being murdered and starved. They are being scattered like sheep on the cold, bare mountaintops, homeless and friendless. For a time, I bow to the inevitable. I wait that a greater than I may read you the riddle of this dark star. It was at first thought that the king of the world was the planetary ruler of the earth, but later instruction from the king himself explained that he was a great Atlantean master who had passed through the process of physical regeneration and so was able to retain and renew his physical body indefinitely. During the ensuing ages, he had developed greater and greater powers and had been entrusted with greater and greater tasks until he became the chief representative on earth of the celestial ruler of our globe. Since the publication of this prophecy in December 1922, we have many inquiries for further details as to this prophecy, but few further details can be given. Remember that the prophecy did not come from the teacher of the order of Christian mystics, nor from the coming avatar, but from the representative of the planetary ruler of this globe, the earth, and those few who heard it were too greatly awed to ask details during that brief visit. The only detail that we can give is that the country represented by the little finger was not Japan, as some suppose, but probably some part of the western North America. The special region cannot be indicated until after the rising of Lemuria and the settling and readjustment of the continent. To us, the prophecy indicated that which will come to pass if humanity persists in its present course and continues to send out destructive vibrations of inharmony, antagonism, hatred, selflessness, and greed, instead of the constructive vibrations of brotherhood and cooperation. That the latter are the most vital needs of the world today is corroborated by United States senators, officials, and prominent businessmen after returning from Europe who practically agree with Senator McCormick of Illinois, who is quoted as saying that, more important to the rehabilitation of Europe than any conference, than any agreement between statesmen and financiers can be, is the exorcism of the spirit of hate and greed, which animates governments and peoples. Unless the peoples are moved by a Christian will to peace and by a Christian comity, there can be no real peace in Europe. While the earth children are scattered through all the countries, they are most concentrated in the Far East. They are concentrated in Asia because they are less mingled with children of other planets and hence are able to correlate more readily with the consciousness of the earth and come more fully under the guidance of their king, where in certain sacred monasteries he has appeared and given personal instruction. In view of the above, we can now understand the destructive aspect of the flame of purification which will spread from the east to the west and will ultimately sweep all nations, each suffering according to the amount of inharmony, unbrotherliness, antagonism, and evil there is to be consumed. We can correlate with the flame and make the fire our servant only as we strive to become one with the divine fire of the living Christ and willingly allow it to burn from us all inharmony and impurity, all that holds back the manifestation of our real or divine self. Once we have grasped the idea that the flame consumes only that which is evil or which must be transmuted to make room for the divine life and joy of those who fearlessly face self and bravely strive to conquer all that is not in harmony with the law, then like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even though we seem bound hand and foot and thrown into the fiery furnace, the flames of purgation now sweeping the earth, when the morning of the new day dawns, we will be found walking free in the midst of the flame, because the Lord Christ walks with us. So now that we know about the scientific purposes and uses of Cern and HAARP, the coming cataclysm, the coming race, the rise of the Antichrist, the hate for the white race that is accumulating in the Asiatic ideology from China to Russia to Belarus down to Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Philippines, Malaysia, Taiwan. This hate is accumulating for the white race. The white race does not mean skin color. It means the light race. Those who carry the fire of the living Christ. Those who carry the light. As we read in Coming World Changes, only those who carry the fire of the living Christ will survive this cataclysm, and only those who have the fire of the living Christ will survive when he returns to judge and wage war. Now, can we place times and dates on these future events? Yes. First, we have to look at the spirit of prophecy, which is the testimony of Jesus Christ. It is common knowledge among the average church that Jesus Christ was crucified, died, and resurrected 2,000 years ago. Scholars agree the crucifixion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ happened in the year 33 AD. Therefore, as of 2021, it has been exactly 1,988 years since the crucifixion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. 2,000 years after 33 AD is the year 2033, the year projected by prophecy to be the year when Jesus Christ returns. 33 minus 7 equals 26. So the 7-year tribulation begins in the year 2026, when the Antichrist, or King of the World, is placed into power. The beast's number is 666. He rises to power in 2026. The coming cataclysm will happen between 2024 and 2026. So if 2033 is the year Jesus Christ returns, it has to be in correspondence with the spirit of prophecy, which is the testimony of Jesus Christ. We can find the spirit of his testimony in a book removed from the Bible called The Cave of Treasures, in the 6th book, the 6,000th year. The creation and fall of Adam and Eve was on a Friday, the 1st of April. 5,500 years later, the crucifixion of Christ was on a Friday, the 1st of April. 2,000 years later, after his death and resurrection, in the year 2033, the 1st of April is on a Friday. The spirit of prophecy and the testimony of Jesus Christ is giving me the numbers 4, 1, 20, 33 at the 9th hour. I want to share with you this eternal treasure by reading to you the testimony of Jesus Christ, which is the spirit of prophecy as told to us in Revelations 19 verse 10. This is the cave of treasures, the crucifixion of Christ. The crucifixion of Christ. And know thou also that Christ dwelt in Mary, and suffered in Nazareth, and was born in Bethlehem, and was laid in a manger, and was carried by Simeon in the temple of Solomon, and was reared in Galilee, and was anointed by Mary Magdalene, and ate the Passover in the house of Nicodemus, the brother of Joseph from Ramatha, and was bound in the house of Hannah, and was struck with the reed in the house of Caiaphas, and embraced the pillar, and was scourged with a whip in the praetorium of Pilate. And on Friday, on the first day of Nisan, which is April, on the 14th day of the moon, our Redeemer suffered. At the first hour of Friday, God fashioned Adam from the dust, and at the first hour of Friday, Christ received spittle from the sons of Adam. At the second hour of Friday, the wild beasts and the cattle and the feared fowl gathered themselves together to Adam, and he gave names to them as they bowed their heads to him. And on the second hour of Friday, the Jews gathered themselves together against Christ, and they gnashed their teeth at him, even as the blessed David said, "Many bulls have gathered together round about me. Bulls of Bashan have beset me around." At the third hour of Friday, a crown of glory was placed on the head of Adam, and at the third hour of Friday, the crown of thorns was placed on the head of Christ. 3 hours was Adam in paradise and shining with splendor, and 3 hours was Christ in the judgment hall being beaten by creatures that had been fashioned out of dust. At the 6th hour, Eve went up to the tree of the transgression of the commandment, and at the 6th hour, Christ ascended the cross, the tree of life. At the 6th hour, Eve gave unto Adam the fruit of the gall of death. And at the 6th hour, the crowd of iniquity gave unto Christ vinegar, and gall. For 3 hours Adam remained under the tree naked, and for 3 hours was Christ naked on the wood of the cross. And from the right side of Adam went forth Eve, the mother of mortal offspring, and from the right side of Christ went forth baptism, the mother of immortal offspring. On Friday, Adam and Eve sinned, and on Friday their sin was remitted. On Friday, Adam and Eve died, and on Friday they came alive. On Friday, death reigned over them, and on Friday they were freed from his dominion. On Friday, Adam and Eve went forth from paradise, and on Friday our Lord went into the grave. And on Friday, Adam and Eve became naked, and on Friday, Christ stripped himself naked and clothed them. On Friday, Satan stripped Adam and Eve naked, and on Friday, Christ stripped naked Satan and all his hosts and put them to shame openly. On Friday, the door of paradise was shut, and Adam went forth. And on Friday, it was opened, and a robber went in. On Friday, the two-edged sword was given to the cherub, and on Friday, Christ smote with the spear and brake the two-edged sword. On Friday, kingdom and priesthood and prophecy were given unto Adam, and on Friday, priesthood and kingdom and prophecy were taken from the Jews. And at the 9th hour, Adam went down into the lowest depths of the earth, the height of paradise. And at the 9th hour, Christ went down to the lowest depths of the earth, to those who lay in the dust from the height of the cross. Know also that Christ was like unto Adam in everything, even as it is written, in that very place where Melchizedek ministered as a priest, and where Abraham offered up his son Isaac as an offering, the wood of the cross was set up, and that self same place is the center of the earth, and there the four quarters of the earth meet each other. For when God made the earth, his mighty power was running before it, and the earth was running after it, and the power of God stood still and became motionless in Golgotha, and that same place formeth the boundary of the earth. When Shem took up the body of Adam, that same place which is the door of the earth opened itself. When Shem and Melchizedek had deposited the body of Adam in the center of the earth, the four quarters of the earth closed in about it and embraced Adam. And straightway that opening was closed firmly, and all the children of Adam were not able to open it. And when the cross of Christ, the Redeemer of Adam and his sons, was set up upon it, the door of that place was opened in the face of Adam. And when the wood was fixed upon it, and Christ was smitten with the spear, and blood and water flowed down from his side, they ran down into the mouth of Adam, and they became a baptism to him, and he was baptized. So as we observe the testimony of Jesus Christ, which is the spirit of prophecy, as told to us in the book of Revelations chapter 19, verse 10, we are given an idea of the day Jesus Christ will return. On Friday, the 1st of April, Adam and Eve were created. On Friday, the 1st of April, Adam and Eve sinned. On Friday, the 1st of April, Jesus Christ was crucified. And in the year 2033, the 1st of April is on a Friday. The spirit of prophecy, the testimony of Jesus Christ, is pointing to the day 4/1/2033 on the 9th hour. Now, I'm very aware of the book of Matthew, and no man truly knows the hour or the day, but we can have an idea of where to have our sights set. On the day Jesus Christ will return, we will have an idea of when this coming cataclysm will happen. We will have an idea of when this coming race will appear. We have an idea of when the Antichrist will rise to power and truly force the mark of the beast. Why do we get this idea? So that we can prepare, so that we can see the end of the road, the light at the end of the tunnel, and not give up. Jesus Christ is returning. And that's why after the shift in the continents and the cataclysm, the next step and the next purpose of Cern and HAARP is to cause a big bang. The purpose of this Big Bang is to continue the war that the fallen angels started. All of this goes so deep beyond governments and celebrities and secret societies. It goes as deep as the angels themselves who fell from grace. And they want to recreate the Big Bang so they can continue their war in heaven. It won't only be a mock flood. It will literally rip the world in half. Their goal is to actually recreate the Big Bang. This will destroy the universe in completion. The Big Bang is what created the universe. God said, "Let there be light." That was the Big Bang. That is the Big Bang. Their attempt is to blow up all of creation, all of existence. They know they are defeated. Their future and hope of an afterlife is eternal damnation. This is something they will attempt to avoid by annihilating all of creation, all of existence, and they will attempt to continue their war and their rebellion and their execrations against heaven. And if they cause a Big Bang, in layman's terms, that's a nuclear attack on heaven. The kingdom of heaven is real. Heaven is a real physical place. We know this because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. He died and rose from the dead in 3 days. That means he came to life in the same body that he had died in. He came back to life means he was a physical creation once again. When the angels ascended him into heaven, that shows us heaven is a real physical place. When you look up at night and see the stars, you are not looking at outer space or the universe as we have been indoctrinated to believe. You are looking at the very first level of heaven. All of this goes far beyond science, far beyond religion, far beyond a global war. They are continuing the same war they started in heaven. It never ended. Once these God particles have been detected and accelerated at the speed of light and they collide, a Big Bang will be produced. The intention is far beyond a global war. The intention is far beyond destroying the earth. Their intention is to continue the war in heaven that they started. Where is and what is the God particle? In the book of Genesis, God said, "Let there be light." That is the Big Bang. When this happened, everything came into creation and existence, the kingdom of heaven as well as the earth. Therefore, the God particle is everything. It is all around us at all times. God created all things in heaven and on earth. This is why the Bible tells us Jesus Christ will return. He must return, and he will return with war and judgment. Revelations 19:11 through 16. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. He shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and the wrath of Almighty God. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Revelations chapter 6, verse 15 and 16. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. So in the end, as we observe everything we have examined, there is nothing we can do to avoid this great cataclysm, this great end. But the most powerful thing we can do is put our faith in Jesus Christ. John 3:16. For God so loved the earth that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. God promises a new earth and a new heaven. Revelation chapter 21. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne, behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. And he that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and the murderers and the warmongers and the sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. And there came unto me one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials full of the seven last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will shew thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and shewed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. On the east 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city, and the gates thereof, and the wall thereof. And the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth. And he measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs. The length and the breadth, the height of it are equal. And he measured the wall thereof 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man, that is, of the angel. And the building of the wall of it was of jasper, and the city was pure gold, like unto clear glass. And the foundations of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth an emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprasus, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Every several gate was of 1 pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold, as it were transparent glass. And I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor into it. And the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night there. And they shall bring the glory and honor of the nations into it, and there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination or maketh a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life. I want to end this video with the Our Father prayer. Jesus says, when we pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathens do, for they think they shall be heard for their much speaking. Therefore, when we pray, we are to pray the Our Father prayer, which goes, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.